It's come to this, man. Rage bait titles. I'm doing it. It's the only way it's going to work. It's the only way the algorithm's going to listen
I
to me.
sold out years ago.
You
Ash
did.
is only selling out
You
now.
sold it immediately. Immediately. You didn't even try.
It took me like 3 YouTube videos in to be like, oh yeah, this just works.
We have to... The best part is how mad people will be when it isn't a rage bait actual conversation.
I know. Yeah.
But we have to do this. Hey everybody, welcome to Inside Tabletop. And another rage bait title. Confirm.
Well, half your comments are by people that don't even watch the videos.
That's entirely true. Yeah, they watch the first 3 seconds and then it's
like, I have something to say.
YouTube viewers confirmed. If you haven't watched Inside Tabletop before on the GMG, Inside Tabletop YouTube channel, because I've had to split my channel into multiple channels for the algorithm to pay attention. Hopefully this is monetized by now. This is our series where myself and my friends from inside the tabletop gaming industry sit down and talk about topics of the day. And this is Chris from Loads of War Games and Hobbies.
What's going on, everyone?
You run a hobby shop here in Ontario, Canada, and you and I work together. You've been doing that for 10 years, and you and I worked for that for about 10 years for Games Workshop. And we sit down usually about once a month. And do a live recording with the GMG patrons where they get to ask us questions. We do a whole bunch of additional bonus content in that stream, which usually lasts about 4 hours. And then these come out individually as videos for you guys to watch. So this one came out because of a GMG or a patron question, actually, which was, I'm just going to read it right now because it was in the comments from the live stream that we did. And it was, why has AG1 not sponsored me yet? Oh, no, it's not Athletic Greens. It's, it was how many 40K chapter proof decks can you fit inside a Skaven Tide box?
Cheeky comment.
Is Workshop officially confirmed doing Fear of Missing Out production tactics to sell through other products and make them limited? Because it does feel like they could definitely have printed more of some of these essential, what I've been calling Fortnite Battle Pass products, where you have to subscribe for the year with something like the General's Handbook and the 40K chapter proof match play card deck. How does that feel for you as a retailer? Because it literally means you make less money. If they produce less, they sell it instantly. They mostly sell through their own website because they can be guaranteed to get one that way. And you do or don't make less money that way. How does that feel? Is it real? Do you think it's real?
Yeah, I think it's real. I think it has to be real to some degree because, like, when you look at a product like this, all the logical things in your brain tell you that this if the goal was to get this into the hands of every 40K player, because it should be. If this is the product for this person to buy for the year, then you and I, who both worked for the company for a long time, think they would just make enough of these, right?
10 years ago they would have. 10 years ago it would have been,
and they would have been okay. They would have been okay to be like, yeah, if we have some left with whatever,
we put them in a whole berm. They're tax credit.
Exactly, right?
We get it back in the back.
We have ways of dealing with you. Leftover decks.
And more importantly.
Players
get them and get the satisfaction of playing the game, of completing the build, paint, play gameplay loop.
But it does seem like the strategy now is more in line with, like, it doesn't matter what type of product it is anymore necessarily. Like, there's like the categories matter less. It's more just like we need to maintain this, like, new releases sell out, so you better buy it.
And here's the reason too. They've put a much shorter lifespan on these products.
Yes.
If this thing existed 10 years ago, there'd be probably 4 years between editions.
Yeah, true.
And not only that, if there was 4 years between editions, that product would be the only product of its type for that 4 years. Mm-hmm. Whereas now we're moving into that, hey, look, we learned the wrong thing from video games. And every year we need you to buy a Fortnite Battle Pass.
Yeah.
We need to buy the new Battle Pass, the new Battle Pass, the new Battle Pass, the new Battle Pass, the new Battle Pass. And because the burn on it's so short, they don't have the time to have it sit in the warehouse and not be selling. They want it gone. Mm-hmm. The conveyor belt is filling up and the warehouse is backing up full of product. They're so afraid of having it sit on the shelf in their own warehouses that they're short selling it. And I think I think it's kind of, you can't have a company doing as well as they're doing say that we can't afford to make more of these. It's got to be intentional.
And you think about, like, stepping back, taking the bird's eye view of this, like, what actually happens when these like keystone products like sell out and people can't get them, right? Whether it's like a new army box that comes out, like the Space War Army box or whatever, and it sells out and people, like, literally there's like people are like, I have the cash in hand, I can't get one. A lot of it like goes online and creates this like extra noise and buzz, and people start talking about it. And I wonder if the long-term effect of that is like people get that little bit of fear, right, in the FOMO of like, well, I know what I'm doing next time. I'm going to be, there first. I'm going to get in line. I'm going to go online and get it. I'm going to, no matter what, right? So it's like setting this expectation each time,
Yep.
right? That if you're not quickest to the click, like you're just not going to get one, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's other side benefits to it too. It drives more sales to their own website, which means that they get the full ticket for it.
Mm-hmm.
You get less because they make less off you when they sell at a trade discount to you. So they make less off each of those individual items, right? So people are more likely to line up at pay full price at the
Warhammer store.
The Warhammer store, or through the website, the Warhammer website, where they'll get the full ticket for it. So it's another side benefit of that FOMO.
Yeah.
And then there's just the efficiency of production thing, because as you've said, they are making a lot of their money through being a fire hose of products.
Yes.
Give you an example. This is probably a month and a half ago when this video airs for people live on YouTube.
Right.
I will have done a review for 2 codexes, so 2 chaos codexes the same weekend, the associated battle forces for them, a chapter approved card deck in a single weekend.
That's all one
weekend. That's one weekend's
yeah.
pre-orders.
Yeah.
That is like a month and a half in 2015 40K releases, right? That's a month and a half's worth of weekly release stuff in a single weekend. The fire hose is just getting more powerful. And so that efficiency, if it has a positive outcome for them of that, like rush to their own website, selling through everything you always have, creating a customer fear of missing out of that product for a given amount of time and not being able to enjoy the experience with their friends because they don't have the thing they need to play, then why wouldn't they?
Yeah.
And I think that there's not a callousness in that decision. They're not trying to hurt people or hurt their feelings or make anybody miss out. But there's so many more upsides than downsides for them. Why wouldn't they do it this way?
Well, and even the local hobby shop, like it means that like new releases tend to sell out quicker, right?
And it's not sitting in the warehouse. It's not sitting on the deck.
It's not sitting on your shelf.
It's
you don't have
creating
a lot of extra
space for the
your...
next thing that's behind it to come out and be that next wave.
Exactly.
The fire hose, like if you've ever seen what happens when you jam a baseball into a fire hose, let me tell you, it causes a backup that is incredibly damaging for the system. And they don't want that incredibly damaging backup in the system because there's stuff coming up, piling up behind it.
Yeah.
They can't afford for it to happen. And so it's all upsides for them. Mm-hmm. But I do think it's real. And how does that, so I guess the question then for you as the retailer is, man, what do you have to feel when it comes to telling people you can't get it or you sold out and it's all gone?
Well, we talk about the FOMO stuff a lot on our channel, and this always reinforces this is why if you're a customer, it's good to have a good relationship with your local store. It's good. It's why you patronize them. It's why you support them, because usually when these types of products come out, there's something you really, really want. Most of the time, they're going to have your back. You're going to get on that list, and you're going to be okay, right? Like we didn't even put our chapter approved decks on our web store. Like we just kept them off because we're getting so few of them. We're going to make sure we take care of the people that play regular 40K in our store first and then go out from there, right? And I think that's honestly the best thing you can do to avoid that kind of situation is just have that really good relationship with the business that you support.
Now, why can you get so few? Is it your choice to get that few, or is it that you're physically just being shipped less than you ordered?
We live in an allocation world now.
Okay.
Everything's allocated.
Can you explain that to the viewers?
Yeah. So the way any of these big companies operate, so GW more recently has moved to this model, but this has been happening in the card world for a long time. Essentially, you apply early for a certain amount of things, and the company basically tells you what you get. And sometimes there's rules within that make sense. Oh, you're this size store or this size you're here on the program. With cards, it could be as simple as oh, you're a premium store or you're a basic account, and you get allocations based on that sort of thing, right? But with a company like Workshop, it's a little more arbitrary and behind the scenes, the kind of decisions they're making. And I do think they're being, to their credit, very democratic about it, in the sense that there seems to be a very even spread Like they're not just like, oh, our biggest accounts get like everything and then you get like a little bit or whatever. That has not been my experience, so that's been pretty good. But there are essentially these like invisible hard caps behind the numbers. So you could put in an order for 100 card decks and then they'll cap you down to like 12 or something like that. Right? Yeah. Which is funny because you just put a funny number in there sometimes because you know it's not going to be.
It's not even show up.
You're not going to get that many. Yeah. And other things could be capped at 1 or 2 or 3, right? So like when you think about it, like in North, because we have the same, we share all our allocations with the US as well, right?
Sure. Yeah.
So
you're all fulfilled at the same warehouse.
There's like a couple thousand LGSs.
Yeah.
That, you know, so even a cap of 3 is like 10,000 units, right? Easily. So, you know, a thing like a Battle Force, you're thinking, oh, that, you know, they didn't make a lot of these. Even if you're getting 4 of them per store, like that's a lot of Battle Forces, right? So, yeah.
What did 40,000 of an individual Battle Force show up in a?
Yeah, exactly.
In a warehouse?
Yeah. You're like, oh,
if somebody's getting if one of those online retailers getting 100 of a Battle Force, right? And there's, let's say, 50 to 100 of those that are of that size, ordering wise. That is so much warehouse product.
Yeah.
So much warehouse product. Like the distribution of it becomes an efficiency game because you physically have to have the space to jam this stuff into. Otherwise, you got C cans sitting out in the parking lot of your warehouse just waiting to get offloaded.
Yeah.
And I bet there are. I bet there are C cans literally just littering around the distribution hubs in all of the major distribution networks for North America, for Europe, and for especially for Asia, for the Pacific, like Australia market and stuff like that too. There's probably just a lineup of C cans waiting to get like opened up, basically.
And you can see how much that business is like that now with the way that you get these like all or nothing kind of moments with GW. Like they're not afraid anymore to have like a weekend where nothing comes out.
No.
And then 3 weekends in a row where like way too much comes out.
Yeah.
So it's a bit schizophrenic like that, but that's just the way that they're kind of just like thing comes in out. Like as soon as it hits the warehouse, the thing triggers for the Sunday preview and it's like, hey, it's going to be distributed. And they've even like started shipping things earlier, so it's like barely touching the ground and leaving like now at this point.
Yeah, it's just so
it's pretty crazy, right? It's heavily allocated. I would say like 40K items, Black Library novels, all that stuff is extremely like
rare,
allocated rare, and people are maxing out on that stuff every week because of
what about sub games like Kill Team and like those like single print games?
Yep, Kill Team is capping. Like you cap on Kill Team easily. Like
it falls in that market.
Like the Typhon box set when it comes, like easily you'll get capped on that.
What about Horse Heresy?
That's going to be an interesting one. They will have caps on everything, but like a lot of this stuff they have to kind of like based on older data, right? Of like,
because like Old World, they really had to guess.
Yeah.
And same with Horse Heresy when it first launched in 2022. Like they kind of had to guess.
Well, I'll put it this way. I haven't really hit a cap on AOS recently.
Yeah.
So the caps are quite high because there's a lot of shops that are ordering very little or don't even carry much AOS, which is like, because it's not the easy in and out, like stuff's not selling out immediately and that sort of thing, right? So there's a bit less FOMO there, which is great for us because we sell a lot of iOS and we're like, yay, I can get 8 Prince 4 drives. That's great.
Yay!
Instead of 2. Yeah. This is fantastic, right?
Yeah, you get 1 Logan Grimnar and you get 8 Vor drives.
Yeah, and I feel like we'll see with Horse Heresy. I'm going to be really interested to see because we have I'm kind of a little scared because like if a lot of stores adopt it and pick it up, that could be bad for us because that'll mean that our allocations might be smaller, right? So
I'm betting a lot of people do the starter set.
Yeah.
But like I stocking it is such a like crapshoot because you need people to want to play it. And it requires it depends on what kind of game it is. Because everybody tries to make Horus Heresy into 40K and play it match play style and like it's just not that game. No.
And it's becoming even less like that. It's going to be
they're pushing it. They're pushing it hard.
Yeah. It's quickly becoming, if it wasn't already, which I think it kind of was already, becoming just like you and your friends are doing Juno Beach or whatever, and you're spending a whole.
Well, they're giving it the Necromunda stat line, the old Road Trader stat lines, right?
It's fantastic. Yeah. It's great. It's like pure historical. It's great.
But you can only sell so many Space Marines forever.
It's true.
And to go back to the beginning, they had to rewind the tape back to the very beginning again.
That's right.
We're at Terra. No, back to the beginning.
No, back to drop site.
Time's a flat circle.
Yeah.
They're gonna Infinity War it. Whoop, and they go back to the drop site.
And then next edition they'll go really late. late war or whatever.
No, they'll do the Unification Wars.
There you go.
They'll have the Thunder Warriors.
There you go.
You can always go back further. Eventually, it'll just be GW doing a World War II game where the Emperor's leading fucking, I don't know, fucking the Charge Light Brigade or something like that. World War I. They go back to the Emperor leading Roman legionnaires to fight the Cthulhu monsters that are living on the Isle of Albion.
Hey,
I'm fine with it.
Let's go.
You can basically you can just make up. You can Stephen King it. You can make up nonsense forever. This guy's trash can is secretly a dimensional door to something.
I'm still waiting for 40K Classic to come. Where they do the old world but for 40K. They do old.
We ran the 40K Classic, remember?
I know. It was actually really
the
fun.
40K Classic was so fun. It was
so good, yeah.
We just reprinted 3rd and 4th edition. So you guys want a free idea.
We did the mini wargaming thing or whatever, yeah. We're going to do old versions of 40K.
Well, it was current 40K rules, but you had to play old formats.
Force organization charts.
So we used the old Force org chart. We used old missions from the original book.
They made that harder to do now because you basically would have to categorize all units again. Because they don't have categories.
We just make a list.
Yeah,
publish lists.
Have to make a list.
Super easy to do.
So we're doing it, is what you're saying.
Is what we're doing? I do it.
That seems fun. I don't know. It's like kind of 40K I want to play.
That's the kind of thing we could definitely write for the patrons. That's not a terrible idea.
That's not a bad idea.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh, are we going to do it again? We still have the logo, right?
We do. We
still have the 40K Classic logo?
We had John, we locked him in the basement.
We had John make the logo? Oh, shit. We could do that. That's an idea. That's an idea. I hate when I get ideas. The best thing is we could just arbitrarily use the points from the actual rule books as opposed to using the online points because it won't matter. Okay, well, that's a thought for another day. But I do think that it's funny. This is a question that gets thrown around, and this is my last kind of portion of this. Is it a moral question? Because as consumers, we get to choose how we interact with our interests. I do think that and everyone has their pain point for what they're willing to spend to stay with an interest or not. Like, you know what I mean? Like, you can always choose to interact with it on a reduced level or in an old way. There are, again, these wrong lessons learned from the video game industry, like making this a battle pass, making this a thing that you have to constantly resubscribe to for a dollar value.
Sure.
That are a conscious decision. Is it a decision that has an ethical barometer to it though? Is that right or wrong for a for-profit business to do that? Because I don't think it's wrong. But a lot of people have a real intolerance for that practice and especially making it something you have to rush out and get to be able to have a good time with your friends, right? It's like saying you can't all go to the same concert. You can't all go watch the same football game because you didn't get this thing that came out this month. How does that feel to you?
Oh man, we're getting deeply philosophical here, but you're asking the guy.
When we talk about FOMO,
you're asking the guy who's like, there's no ethical consumption under capitalism, so how could you have any morals at all?
And that is the correct answer in my mind too.
Yeah, it's like,
but you also have to have empathy and put yourself in the shoes of your consumer, right? Your customer.
And this is why I spent, against my own personal interest, spent a lot of time on my channel talking about how giving advice to people that consume things to know yourself as much as you can. Take step backs, take breaths. A lot of the stuff that's FOMO is coming back. It's not gone forever. You know what I mean? And I think
brought back Cursed City.
The best thing
that was one of the big pain points there.
The best thing you can do is be really sure about what you like and don't like, and just try to enjoy it. Right? I think the happiest customers I have are not on the train. They've left the train. They don't let the marketing train dictate what they like and don't like, right? They have their interests, and it's just a yes or no for them usually, right? So, and don't get me wrong, that doesn't mean you don't get caught up once in a while. I have my personal hobby group or whatever, and they all joke about whose turn it is to get shot or whatever by GW, because
whose army gets canceled.
And more recently,
who was the Beastman player? Who was
shot
the
by
player?
the money cannon, basically, the new Space Wolves came out, so a couple of guys are the kid inside them comes out and they're like, oh, I have to get that. It's like my
they're
favorite
so
army.
cool.
The models are so they knocked it out of the park.
They crushed with those miniatures, yeah.
But that's okay, they get on the train for that one because it's just something they want or whatever.
Yeah.
But it's about being really sure that it is what you want and not participating in each thing that comes out because it's going to kill you. And when I mean it's going to kill your hobby. It's going to kill your interest. It's going to kill your drive to do stuff.
You basically consume over your limit and you start to get burned out by it.
It's really a lot more fulfilling to buy things that have been out for a long time and you just kind of
change.
Like, there's a lot. I'd say this is the old GW brain in me. I was told this by my bosses and stuff back in the day. Is like, don't focus on new releases. Every person that comes in, the whole wall is a new release to them. Every army they don't have is a new release to them. Yeah. That's always in the back of my head. I actually joke about it with my trade guy, Daniel, who's a great guy. Yeah. And we've been he's been in GW for ages. And was there when we were there. And we laugh about the old times and I share those things with him. And he's like, oh, this is why I don't worry about you, Kreis. It's like I got all these like great things I pull out of history or whatever. And it's like that's one of the things I'm like, I'm not going to sweat it too much. And as a business, I always try to keep that in my mind too. It's like you have this huge wall of 40K products that is awesome. And that new thing is just this little blip, right?
Yeah, it's funny though, because I think one of the things we struggle with, and this is me kind of devil's advocating for the people that really do feel some pain from this.
Yeah, sure.
We used to be of a mindset culturally in tabletop gaming that your collection was forever. And it was an accomplishment that you built over time. And we've gotten really comfortable in the last little while with creating a disposability in our collections where, great example, those Space Wolves.
Yeah.
How many Logan Grimnars have there been? How many Njals have there been? How many Arctic Slayers have there been miniature-wise? Right. And how many can you still use today in a culture where you have to have a WYSIWYG exactly the miniature that this is supposed to be kind of environment?
Yeah.
And how do you feel about the hobby that you love moving past you in this constant fire hose of releases, right? Where the thing that you were doing 10 years ago feels like it doesn't have value anymore. I think that's the emotional thing with this FOMO style releasing and this fire hose of product where like you start to feel like your accomplishment didn't matter.
Yeah. I think
that you're chasing a new accomplishment.
I think there's a couple of ways to split that up. I think you're onto something there. I think in one case I can say that like there's a lot of people that like, let's go back to the Space Wolf example, are like big fans of the Space Wolves, right? Like say you have your old armies and everything. I think more often than not, what I see at least in the shop and with other people I know is when they see a new Logan Grimnar, it's more they're excited I get to paint the new one.
Sure, definitely.
And that is the overriding emotion there. They don't think any less of their old one. It's more like I get to put the new one next to the old one, and what a cool like journey or whatever, right? Yeah. I felt that way with Azerman. I was talking about a whole bunch while I was painting it. We were doing a little thing in the store and talking about how like this is one of the first characters I ever painted, and it's so cool to return to it and like feel that thing I felt when I was 11 again. And I think there is a part to that there, but then there's a very separate like disposable element you're talking about, which is like the books get thrown away, and there's models you can't use in the game anymore. And
or they're on the wrong bases, or you know what I mean, like this.
Yeah. Like where you have to keep like forcing it through a new hole almost, like where, and I think I go back to like the same thing again, where I'm like, I get the like wanting to like, and if you're one of these people that you're going to tournaments and like doing the match play thing, and like there is a lot of pressure. I'm not going to lie in those circles to kind of conform and that thing, but outside of that, I think like there is a lot of space there for people to just kind of like keep things the way they are. And
again, like, we talked about this in an earlier episode. Our ability to let things go and take on something new is a unique ability to very few people.
Sure. And I have to remind myself.
We have to remind ourselves that when we figure that, like,
I'm like, no man, this is cool, it's new, it's awesome. That people are like, oh, I can't get over it that quickly.
Some people can't. They want to ruminate on their past experience a lot and be able to recreate it. And this is that cult of the new release mentality. I think there's probably a lot for the average consumer. I think there's probably a logical end point, a terminus to the amount of time you can be on that train.
Yeah.
Before you go somewhere else, right? Whether it's to another game inside that same ecosystem or to a whole other company. But we wouldn't see the market itself grow based upon Games Workshop's growth if people weren't at some point getting off that train for something else inside the market that's a lot less fast moving and a lot more sort of stable, comparatively speaking. It might still change and grow. Like even like Infinity this past edition got rid of a ton of codes, a bunch of armies. Like it happens everywhere over time if things last long enough on a long enough timeline. But that idea of constantly chasing the new, the main industry leader is building their business around that.
So one thing I just maybe not to wrap things up, but like to kind of like say,
we're on the downslope.
How it used to be, how it is now. I think going from like the working in Warhammer stores example of how we used to think about it in Games Workshop terms to how it is now, I think it was always kind of that way to some degree, but it was more so like, let's say you had a Space Wolf army in the late 90s, early 2000s. We even like as staff members would talk about how like there is a point at which a person no longer is a customer, where they just like they keep using the same army and they just want to keep playing the same games, and that's okay. That's a healthy thing. They might just be happy with what they have, and that's
Warhammer
it, right?
Fantasy Battle. Warhammer Fantasy Battle was the first
literally
product.
The reason.
It's the first product to become a subscription business. You bought the one new box regiment and the new army book every 4 years.
Yeah.
And that was it. If you had a dwarf army, that was all you bought. You bought whatever the new box is plus the army book, and you bought it every 4 years. And you kept playing with your old army.
And there's nothing wrong with that, but there's also the acknowledgement that like you're no longer a customer for that company.
Yeah.
And kind of you have to kind of like understand that that's the element there. Whereas Games Workshop has instead of just having this sort of like, well, the staff kind of deal with that at the workshop, and you have those tough conversations with customers, like where you try to challenge them. You're like, oh, have you thought about playing the army this way and picking up these new units? Or have you thought about starting a new army? Like, stuff like that, right? It's more heavy-handed now.
It is.
That's the only difference, I think, is it's very heavy-handed.
You don't have a choice.
It's intentional.
You don't have a choice, though.
Yeah.
Like the difference is that very often in the 3-year edition change, you don't get a choice. In the Fortnite Battle Pass of the General's Handbook and the chapter proof cards, you don't have a choice.
If you're playing the game the way that they put it out, you're correct.
If you're playing the game against strangers in the accepted format, which as much as they fight against that, that's always going to bubble to the top, right? Just intrinsically by being a binary, we won or we lost game.
Right.
Everyone wants to agree upon what the way that you're the best at that is, and if you keep moving the goalposts, there's no agreement then. So you have to have one agreed way of playing it.
Of course.
And that's gating that into a new purchase every single time on a yearly basis now.
Yes.
So I think you're right. It's much more aggressive and it's much more in your face. And it does mean that FOMO is required, because for them to sustain that from a manufacturing point of view, it has to be in out.
Well, and it's now a company telling you don't belong instead of just like implying it in a way in a softer way, right? Like so I think that's probably what upsets some people.
Sure.
I imagine, for sure. Yeah.
Yeah. Does it benefit you as a business though? Always having something new on your shelf?
It does.
Of course it does.
I mean, it does, of course, right? Like let's not kid ourselves.
Well, but then the not having enough product is the cost.
Yeah.
You get to come to the table.
It is double-edged, right?
You get to come to the table, but you can't eat as much as you want.
We exactly, right? This is the thing that is the thing we're always fighting, which is essentially Games Workshop spends all of the airspace and all the time getting people excited about just the new stuff. And there isn't an infinite supply of those things. So all the stuff that I want to sell all the time, which is all the stuff I've already purchased for the wall in my shop, I have to generally generate all that excitement for and get people to, take interest in stuff like that. So that's the interesting challenge, I think, is there's two forces there, right?
Yeah, there's not a lot of FOMO on the Auric Maw Crusher or
he's already in the history bin already.
There's not a lot of Liberator FOMO or Space Marine Intercessor Squad FOMO out there.
Well, that's actually an interesting point. Is they do attempt these little to reignite these little FOMO moments. I'm sure they have a ton of data that supports this. That essentially why the whole like codex, the new army book and model thing works so well, because the new army book comes out. You refresh the range for people in people's eyes, and the website highlights it a bunch and shows it off to people, and then you get to resell all those things like their new releases for like a few months at least. Yeah. So, yeah.
So it's working, and it's real.
It's real. It's definitely real. It's definitely real. You can't argue how real it is. Yeah.
Yeah. Whether, but I think the underlying question becomes, what's the motivation behind it? And I do think efficiency is more of a motivation than controlling customer behavior. They're not necessarily trying to make you scared. They're trying to make sure, like, that's a byproduct of it. They're trying to make sure that their stuff leaves the warehouse so the next thing can take its place.
What business doesn't want to sell out of something? Yeah. Like, in just plain simple terms.
And sell more.
Right? Like,
it doesn't make any sense that they would intentionally want to sell less.
Yeah.
It's unless the point is their fear of having too much is greater than their fear of you being unhappy as a consumer. My
favorite new release is when I have one left at the end of the weekend.
Yeah.
Because I know I ordered perfectly.
Yeah. Yeah, one for that straggler.
Only followed shortly after by the 0 left or whatever,
Yeah.
which is also very nice or whatever. Yeah.
The one left means
Yeah.
you can have at least one happy conversation.
Yeah,
Monday,
someone came in late
someone
and
came
like
in late,
and you're
you
like,
can
oh
cover
yeah,
for them. Or
and
someone to
then-
get paid until next week or
yeah,
whatever.
exactly right.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, that's the new world. That's the new world.
What a different world, and,
And-
what a hard world to keep up with from the point of view of you still have to physically interact with this product.
Well,
and
we didn't
build
even
it
talk
day
about
to
other
day.
companies and how they have to respond to this way of doing business, right?
That's it.
Because they operate in the same.
We
world,
mentioned CB.
right?
We mentioned CB having to
Yeah.
have, and they have a monthly release,
which
right?
I think is honestly like
They got the sweet spot.
they're smart.
Yeah,
They're
they have the
very
sweet
smart.
spot for
Yeah.
it. Yeah, Corvus Belli, I think, has the sweet spot in this, where, but even they had to, after 15 years, do a range refresh, right? Where they basically cut a bunch of codes,
Yep.
bundle a bunch of product. If you survive long enough, it's a reality for everybody,
Yes.
and it's going to happen. But they're not necessarily. They're what they're not doing is the FOMO sales. They're just trying to get their product out there.
Yeah.
They're not trying to push people to be afraid they can't get it, which I think is very different.
Yeah.
Well, where can people find you online, dude?
We are Lords of War Games and Hobbies on YouTube. Lords of War Games and Hobbies hobby channel. That sounds right.
The
It's
new
so
one?
new. I don't even know what
The
it's
new
called
one? Yeah,
anymore. Harder to find. We do sit and chats for our main channel, and we do like hobby content, product reviews, lessons, that sort of stuff on our other one. So
Yeah, sweet. Well, you can check out this, which is the GMG Inside Tabletop YouTube channel, which is a sub channel because I have to figure out how to get the algorithm to pay attention to the content that's so disparate anymore. And you can also check out the Patreon, of course. When this is recorded, it's recorded in 4 chunks with a live chat, basically as a live stream, and we interact with everybody on the channel. And that's how these topics come up, basically, is by talking to them, listening to people who are talking in the mailbag. So thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time for more Inside
Bye.
Tabletop. Bye, everybody.